today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7. Chapter 1, the Supreme Lord is equal to everyone. Text 44 through 46. How Krishna performs his pastimes, how he orchestrates the lives of his devotees, and material nature is something that is inconceivable, even to the greatest of personalities. Maharaj Yudhisthira, very dear friend of Krishna. Arjuna was like Krishna's equal as a cousin brother. But Maharaj Yudhisthira, because of his seniority in age, he was a cousin brother that Krishna honored and respected. Carried out duties for Yudhisthira Maharaj. Such an exalted soul. But even he, we find, was bewildered witnessing the nature of Krishna's mercy. Because we know the laws of karma. For every action there is an equal corresponding reaction. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. Yudhisthira Maharaj knows about these philosophical principles more than any of us. But what does he sing? He sings Shishupal, who was not only sinful, but he hated God. And his life was dedicated to blaspheming and destroying God. Now Krishna says in Gita, Jejatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham, that as you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. Why would Krishna give Shishupal such a benediction? The ultimate benediction. He was Krishna's enemy his whole life. So envious of Krishna. Of all attributes toward another, envy is so bad. To envy a person to the extent that you want to destroy them, destroy their reputation, kill them. That was Shishupal. And he became so out of hand that Krishna had to kill him. And after all that, he sees the spirit of Shishupal enter into Krishna's body in a way that, according to this purport, he went to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Now this was amazing to Yudhisthira Maharaj. And because he's a humble Vaishnav, he wants to seek a senior devotee and inquire. This is the nature of all Vaishnavas, eager to find a senior devotee and inquire. So, Narada Muni is in these pages describing the unseen background of Shishupal's life, which is very interesting. There are many levels to learn from in this particular pastime. It has been commented on by our acharyas elaborately, because in order to make spiritual progress, these teachings are very, very important. First of all, he's describing what took place just outside the gate of Vaikuntha, where Jai and Vijay, the dedicated, devoted gatekeepers, made a serious mistake. They misused their free will, not necessarily with wrong motivations, but they were bewildered. Krishna ultimately staged it. Srila Prabhupada explains that when Krishna wants to fight with powerful demons, really powerful demons, he chooses his devotees to become those demons. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, everything within us is within Krishna in its perfect state. And just like people like chivalrous activities, so Krishna has that propensity. So it's like playing with his devotees, but very serious playing. So ultimately it was Krishna's will. And a lot is in this story which teaches us not to judge people by what they appear to be. The four Kumaras are the eldest sons of Brahma, but they look like little children. It's hard to take little children so seriously. They're nice, they play, we laugh at them, we love them, but taking them seriously, especially when they want to do something against the rules. Yes? Just like if one of the little 4-year-old children of our congregation wants to just run up on the altar and start playing Krishna's flute. What will you do? Will you say, oh, very nice? No, brahmacharis will say, where's the mother, where's the father, what are you doing? They'll take the child off. No, you cannot go on that altar and play with Krishna's flute. He said, He's a child, you can't take him so seriously. So it was like that. 2 little naked children coming to the gateway saying, we want to go in and see Vishnu. Now, why do you think you're a gatekeeper? You're a gatekeeper, it's your duty to keep unqualified people out. Otherwise, you don't need gatekeepers. So, they have to be, it's their service. They have to be convinced that this person is qualified to enter Vaikuntha. They said, no, you cannot enter. Now, these 4 Kumaras, they're completely transcendental people. They're already totally Brahman realized. They're not subjected to anger. Jayato vishayan pungsang sangat jayate sangat teshu bhajayate sangat sanjayate kama krodha bhajayate. That when we contemplate the objects of the senses, attachment develops from attachment, lust. When lust is unfulfilled, anger. The 4 Kumaras had no lust. That's why they stayed at 4 or 5 years old, so that lust would never enter their heart. because they knew how powerful it was. And they know how when lust enters your heart, it inevitably has to go into anger because it's going to be unfulfilled. There's going to be anxiety. And then we're going to lose our memory, our intelligence will be gone, and then we'll engage in abominable acts. Yes? Now, profit, adoration, distinction is a subtle form of lust. And we see that when one contemplates pratishta, the subtle form of lust, prestige, then the same thing happens. We contemplate that. We develop attachment for our position. We develop attachment for our profile or whatever. And then when it's frustrated, anger. From anger, we lose our memory, our intelligence, and we act by speaking or acting in ways that offend others. And then we fall down. That is why this pratishta is considered a subtle form of lust, because the same principle is controlling it. Now the four Kumaras were beyond all this. If they were attached to prestige, why they stay 5-year-old children naked? They have no attachment to prestige. Like Sukadeva Goswami, last thing he concerned about was prestige. In fact, just the opposite. He was happy when people misjudged him so that he would not become entangled in all of this. So why the four Kumaras get angry? It's Krishna's will. Somehow or other, Krishna orchestrated within their heart to become angry. So Jai and Vijay send them, get out from here. You have no right. Who are you? What is your position? In one sense, their anger was not uncontrolled. They wanted to teach them a good lesson. That you have no right to be in your position unless you do it right. Yes? You're unqualified to be here. So you have to learn a good lesson. We curse you to fall into the material world. It's serious. And Vishnu came out because he loves his devotees. And he actually protected Jai and Vijay. But still, they had to be born as demons 3 times. As the enemies of God. Narada Muni is explaining their first birth. Very exalted. The son of Kashyapa and Diti. Very, very great personalities. Kashyapa was the father of Vamanadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha are the cousin brothers of the Lord, Vamanadev. And their next birth, Vishrava and Keshini. Vishrava is not an ordinary person. He's the son of Pulastya Muni, one of the greatest of the Brahmin sages, who was a son of Lord Brahma. And from them, 4 children were born. Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Vibhishan, Suparnaka. Now, both Hiranyakashipu and Ravana were the rulers of the race of Rakshasas. But this particular birth is very different. Shrutashrava was the sister of Vasudeva, the father of Krishna. She was married to Dhamaghosh, the king of Chedi, and their son, Shishupal. That means Shishupal is Krishna's first cousin. The son of Krishna's paternal aunt. We know he was born with 3 eyes and 4 arms. And he didn't cry like most children. He brayed like an ass. What would you do if you gave birth to a child like that? Mothers, you know, your little child's just this big. Well, this child, this big, goes. 3 eyes, 4 arms. Parents didn't know what to do. It's horrible. And then they were told that the person who will kill your child, when he goes on that person's lap, 1 of his eyes and 2 of his arms will disappear. So they wanted to know this, so they could protect their child from that person. So everyone that was coming to visit the baby, they were putting, Shrutashrava was putting on the lap to see what happens. Nothing was happening. Still, he was this ugly child with 3 eyes and 4 arms, and he just... It's like a little monster. Now, asses are really, really irritating when they... Cows are very sweet. Yes. Birds are very sweet. Even lions, they bring about heroism. But asses, it's obnoxious. Obnoxious. You know, we read about people who roar like lions. That's glorifying them. But have you ever heard anybody glorified for braying like an ass? And he brayed really, even though he was so small, it was very loud. Just struck fear in everyone's heart. So one day, Krishna and Balaram came to the house. And like everyone else, Shrutashrava, the mother, puts Shishupal in Krishna's lap, and all of a sudden, the eye and the arms come off. She was concerned. She was begging Krishna, please don't kill my son. Please don't kill. So he promised her, I will, in any given time, I will forgive him 100 times. But beyond that, then I'm not responsible for this promise. That's Shishupal. But he's actually in a very exalted position. Shishupal is not a Rakshasa like Ravana, Kumbhakarna, or Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha. He's actually prince and king of a royal dynasty that is related to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport, from a social position, he was on equal footing to Krishna. Just as Krishna was Dwarkadish, Here's Chedi Raj, king of Chedi. They're all related. They're all great kingdoms. So Narada Muni is explaining what Yudhisthira Maharaj and nobody else could see about the background of Shishupal. On the surface, he's just an envious, blasphemous, sinful demon. Yes? That's all. But what brought him to that point? What's his background? Ultimately, his background is he was an associate of Krishna who just made a serious mistake and had to fall into all these demoniac consequences. Now, from one perspective, Krishna's teaching how he's equal to everyone. Because Shishupal was constantly remembering Krishna. In fact, Narada Muni tells that I wish I could be so absorbed in remembering Krishna as Shishupal. That is striking. That's a humble position. Narada Muni is chanting the glories of the net Lord in a favorable way and preaching the love of God everywhere, for all times, playing on his veena. Something like Nityananda Prabhu. A brahmachari playing veena. It's very sweet, actually. And he is honoring Shishupal. I wish I could have the absorption Shishupal does. This is the quality of a Vaishnava. This is Saragrahi, seeing the essence. All the horrible demoniac things of Shishupal, Narada Muni is praising that even though he's envious, he's lusty, he wanted to marry Rukmini, yes? He was totally lusty for the goddess of fortune. He was really a rascal. Krishna's own consort. He was lusty after her. And he was absolutely furious when Krishna took her away. Similar to Ravana and Sita. Ravana wanted to take Ramchandra's consort for his own pleasure. Shishupal had that same mentality. He wanted to take Krishna's consort for his own sense gratification. And ultimately both were frustrated. But yet Narada Muni is seeing the good in him. Yes, that all happened. But that's all more or less superficial. What's really important is he's always remembering Krishna. That well-known story of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where there are two articles in newspapers about Gaudiya Math. One was very favorable, and one was extremely critical. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said the critical one was far better. And the devotees could not understand. Why? He said, because so many times Krishna's name is here. The other one, it doesn't say the name so much. So Saragrahi, looking for the essence. If someone reads this, they're going to chant Krishna's name so many times. This is a good article. Narada Muni is praising Shishupal, always thinking of Krishna. This is the power of being absorbed in remembering Krishna. Ultimately, Krishna reciprocates. Therefore, somehow or other, we should always be absorbed in remembering Krishna. Even Kamsa. Because he was absorbed in remembering Krishna, he ultimately became completely purified too. But another message of here, that we find here, is that actually every living being is, if we extend the analogy some, every living being is something like Jai and Vijay. We are all originally Krishna conscious. But at a certain point, time immemorial back, we made a choice. We misused our independence and made a serious mistake. And due to that serious mistake, we had to leave the spiritual world. Some say we were in Vaikuntha directly, some say we were in Brahmajyoti, whatever. But we left the spiritual position. Because we misused our independence and wanted to act independent, separate from Krishna. And every demon that is here today or at any other time has the same origin. Jivara Swarupoy Krishna Nityadas. We're all eternally servants of Krishna. Love of Krishna is within everyone's heart. So if we trace out anyone, whoever they may be, we'll ultimately find that they're good. We'll ultimately find that they're spirit souls, they're our brothers and sisters. They just made some serious mistakes, and due to the mistakes and the laws of karma and the will of the Lord and everything else, they're in the predicament they are now. Some people are ruthless and they're cruel due to greed and pride. No concern for people's lives. No second thought to murder hundreds, thousands, even millions of people for their own benefit, to fulfill their own needs or objectives. Even such demons, the worst, essentially, they're good. They're part of Krishna. Essentially, they love Krishna. At one time, they were pure souls. They made mistakes, and therefore, the series of mistakes that were created have brought them into this position. Now, those whose dharma is to protect the innocent by giving proper justice to those who sin, it is their duty to punish people. And actually, in doing so, Srila Prabhupada explained, when a God-conscious king punishes you, he's actually doing the greatest favor, because he's freeing you from all the karma of what you've done. Otherwise, you may have to suffer many, many births for that karma. But we find preachers, they have a different perspective, like Narada Muni. They're looking for the essence in everyone. The greatest of all preachers was Nityananda Prabhu, Balaram, who comes as a preacher. Now, Jai and Vijay, in their first two births, they were totally surrounded kings of Rakshasas. They were the worst. In this birth of Shishupal, he's actually a very highly esteemed Kshatriya in the family of Krishna. And then their next bonus birth, as Jagai and Madhai, they're Navadvip Brahmins. You don't get any better than that. A Navadvip Brahmin. But they misused their independence in that situation and became horrible terrorists. Even the government had no power to discipline them. That's how powerful they were. Even the Mughal rulers didn't want to go near them because they were just so dangerous and so volatile and so horrible. Hare Krishna. But Nityananda Prabhu was saying that essentially they're devotees. They love Krishna. And yes, all you can tell me about the horrible things that they've done are correct. But essentially, they're good and they just made some serious mistakes. And now they're implicated in the reactions of all these mistakes, and that's why they're so bad. Seeing from that perspective. And wants to just focus on that essence of the good within them and awaken it. That is preacher. When Srila Prabhupada went to the West, and even when he came back to India, he understood. These people are eating meat, these people are having illicit sex, these people are taking intoxications, these people are just wasting their life away with horrible activities. And the Brahmins of India they're sinful. Don't go near them. Prabhupada saw good in everyone. Even when he said rascaldom about people, he was saying that to protect us. But ultimately, he saw good in them too. Just like Vrindavan Das Thakur. He says, if anyone offends Nityananda Prabhu, then I kick him in the head. Hare Krishna. Is that the way Vaishnavas speak? But that's his mercy. That's his kindness. Because he's thinking that those persons are going to have to suffer so bad for their offenses. I want to save them. If I kick them on the head, then my kick on the head will relieve them of so much of the karma of their offenses. So it's actually good for them. And also, maybe they'll wake up if they get a good kick on the head and they'll stop being so nonsense. And also, if Nityananda Prabhu sees that I'm kicking these people on the head, then he's going to take special mercy on them and give them causeless mercy. So even when he's talking bad about people, he's only thinking about their welfare. Prabhupada said so many things about Charles Darwin. Some of you know. He said, I kicked my boot on his face. Because he was misleading so many people with these ideas that justify that there is no God. Giving a scientific analysis of how life comes from matter. In his equation, there's really no need for a God. And because it became scientific truth in the world of science, millions and hundreds of millions of people, even religious people, lose their faith in the necessity of God. Then religion becomes unscientific because it doesn't match what he's saying. And he's a scientist. So Prabhupada, to protect us, he chastised. But ultimately, greatest benediction, something like Vrindavan Das Thakur, same thing. Ultimately, because Prabhupada is remembering Charles Darwin so many times, I can't say, hasn't been revealed to me, but He may be sitting in the room amongst us. Relishing Srimad Bhagavatam class. He may be the biggest book distributor on this year's marathon. Distributing Prabhupada's books. We don't know, but definitely blessings are coming upon him. Because a great soul is remembering him. And remembering him with compassion. Not with hatred, but with compassion. Even the chastisement of a great soul is compassion. Nala Kuvera, Manigriva, they were totally an illusion. But Narada Muni saw the good in them. He saw it. They are eternal servants of Krishna. They're sons of Kuvera. They're coming from the spiritual world. What are they behaving so nonsense? For their good, he cursed them to be trees for a long time. They were trees for centuries, millenniums. They just standing as trees. Because that's what they needed. Standing there as trees, they didn't get to see Krishna, but they were totally humbled because they had the same consciousness as Manigriva and Nala Kuvera. They didn't lose their consciousness of their identity, but now they're like this trees. Now that is hard. That's hard love. First you're beautiful and all these celestial ladies are just so attracted to you and you're having affairs with them and you're wearing beautiful ornaments and everyone's bowing down to you and you're totally attached to your prestige and your sense enjoyment. And here you are, trees. Not easy. Now, if they just had the consciousness of trees, it wouldn't have been so much of a problem. But they had the consciousness of demigods in the body of trees. Some of you may have hurt your back, and the doctor says 8 weeks of complete bed rest. Yes? How many of you have ever gone through something like that, where you have to take bed rest? It's miserable, isn't it? You want to do so many things, you just have to lay there. You want to get up and do things for you just can't do anything. Well, can you imagine? Millions of years, thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the body of a tree, where you can't even move. Very, very difficult. Now when the sun shines on a regular tree, because their consciousness is so low, they don't really care. But with Manigriva and Nala Kuvera, they were conscious, like demigods. Could you imagine standing in the hot sun all day, every day in the summer, and you can't move? It's torturous. And rains, monsoons. And just like now, there's insects that go on you and you go like this because